You're listening to the Big Blue Marble Podcast with Anwar Knight.
Welcome aboard, my friends. It is a true privilege to have your company today. I hope you are safe and all is well under these incredible circumstances. That's the magic of digital, I guess. There are no restrictions here on how many people can join in. In fact, the more the merrier, as they say. But before we begin, I want to dedicate this show to the thousands of brave men and women who are doing their best to ensure that the best case scenario unfolds. They are our healthcare heroes, those on the front lines of this crisis. The work they are doing is unprecedented, and I'm sure I can speak for all Canadians, and actually for all members of the public around the world for that matter, when I say thank you. We are truly grateful for your extreme courage and dedication during this pandemic, and this goes well beyond the immediate health risks that you are facing daily while treating and caring for patients. It's also the fact that many of you also have families of your own, children that you are unable to see due to the risk of bringing the virus home. You work tirelessly, professionally, and compassionately, and for that, we thank you. On today's show, as we keep each other company, a timely distraction of sorts, something I think actually can really make a difference in helping relieve some anxiety and stress that you and your family may be undergoing. And make no mistake, you're not alone with that. It is a scary time. And this help cannot be found online. You can't order it from Amazon. You won't have to stand in line at a local pharmacy. This help is as close as your local ravine. As many of you know, I'm a huge nature lover, and I know I'm not alone. There is a vast list of reasons on what draws certain people to nature. Some seek unique, gentle encounters with wildlife. Others are drawn to capture that breathtaking view, or maybe it's the thrill of an outdoor adventure. Hey, it could be a combination of the above. But forget those aspects for just a moment. Let's drop it into first gear and instead look at the basics. Let's explore a simple green space or small forest, maybe that's already in your neighborhood. From the moment you enter it, you reap a reward. You see, forests have a higher concentration of oxygen. Yeah, of course, trees renew our air supply by absorbing carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. You know, one tree produces nearly 260 pounds of oxygen a year. That's already a good thing. But with that oxygen, you're also inhaling a fragrance. You know that smell of a forest? Well, that's from natural oils that are contained within a plant. They're actually part of a tree's defense system. They are nature's way of protecting a plant from bacteria and insects, etc. Yeah, and you guessed it, it can also help our own body. Again, all of this, and we've done nothing more but simply walk into a forest. Come with me now as we explore ecotherapy with the ancient Japanese practice of forest bathing. That's next, here on the Big Blue Marble Podcast.
Have a question, comment, or show idea? Let us know at bigbluemarble.earth.
Joining us from Minneapolis, it's a pleasure to welcome David Motzenbecker. He is a certified forest therapy guide and runs Mott Studios that facilitates forest bathing experiences. Good day, sir. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Anwar. How are you today?
Well, all things considered, I'm doing okay. You know, like many, one day at a time. But I'm eager to explore and, in fact, share this intriguing concept, David, with our listeners. You know, I'm a huge proponent of connecting with nature, and I think it's perhaps just what we need now more than ever, in fact, with so many people cocooning in their homes, which is a good thing overall. But getting outdoors is very important, of course, while still at the same time ensuring that we practice social distancing, but it can be incredibly beneficial. So let's start right at the top, and let me ask you, how do you explain and describe what forest bathing is?
Well, forest bathing, simple. It's an immersive, meditative, and intentional walk in the woods. It's derived from the Japanese. The phrase is Shinrin Yoku, which translates as taking in the forest air with all your senses.
But this isn't about physical exertion per se. It may be a part of it just based on the terrain you're exploring, but the focus of this is about igniting our senses. It's a full body-mind experience, right?
Correct. This is about slowing ourselves way down. Sometimes in a 2 or 3 hour walk, we only cover not even half a kilometer. It's one of the most difficult things for many participants to do, given our always on, always moving cultures. However, this slowing down, this getting in touch with our senses is the most important element of the walk. It's the gateway to what we call liminal space, or a place where transformation can occur.
So what would a typical experience be like?
Typical forest bathing session, as I was saying, about 2 or 3 hours, depending on the walk. Some are one way, some are the other. And we bring them into the space and we invite them to do certain things. We don't instruct them to do anything. We feel that instructions set expectations, expectations of performance. That opens the potential of not meeting those expectations, becoming disappointed or frustrating with the experience. So we leave it up to you to follow your own mind, to choose to do the invitation or not do the invitation. So there's no expectations. So we have different invitations as we go through the walk. We have some at the beginning, which are a gateway into that walk. So they help people to slow down, kind of leave the world behind for a while. Then we have invitations that begin to encourage exploration and wandering and wondering. Then towards the end of a walk, we have invitations that bring people back from that transformational space, ways to incorporate all the things they've experienced into themselves so they can carry it with them. Maybe when the work week is getting a little stressful, they can remember those things from the walk. And each walk is unique. Each person and place is unique. So I like to go to Heraclitus. He always said you can never step into the same river twice. A walk is never the same twice, no matter the person, because it's always a different day. It's always a different person.
And is this practice year-round?
Absolutely. And in fact, year-round is wonderful. I love the cold, serene, silent quality of winter, the way it gives way to kind of the raucous bird song of spring. Fall is the same. You know, you got that lazy summer going into that quiet, cooling senescence of fall. You see things different in every season, especially if you go to the same place for walks. Many of my walks are hosted at a certain nature center, for instance. And going back there season after season, even week after week, you see different things subtly change all the way through, and that's really revelatory.
Is this like yoga in the sense the more you do, the better it is?
Yes, absolutely, to the point of it being a practice. We consciously call it a practice for that very reason, because the more you do something, the better you get at it. The more you practice noticing details, the more details you see. The more you listen intently, the different things you begin to hear. It allows you to draw that strength from nature's constant cycle of renewal and pull that into yourself. For instance, in yoga, being guided is very important for that practice. It's certainly not required. You could sit down in front of your television with a yoga video and do just fine. But being guided, just like being guided on a forest bathing walk, allows you to freely follow with that intention. Allowing yourself to be led frees your mind from the ability to have to make decisions. It opens you up to just follow as you choose and get those new experiences you may not otherwise.
And I just want to clarify that this doesn't have to be an actual forest. One could still reap the same benefits if it was a green space or even a city park.
Absolutely. Whatever forest is nearby, or prairies or mountains or city parks, as you infer, it really varies, because it's not necessarily about the place, although each place reveals different unique qualities. It's about that intentionality of how you're going into that space, that ability to hone your noticing skills, your senses, and you can do it anywhere.
Well, that certainly makes things very easy. No matter where you are, you can tap into this wonderful natural resource.
Absolutely.
And if you look beyond the current crisis that is happening right now, so leave that aside. In general, though, in everyday life, I think we get caught up in our multitasking lifestyle. There's just so much we want to do in a day, and almost all of it exclusively indoors. In fact, 93% of our time is spent inside. And this comes from the EPA. That's the Environmental Protection Agency. Of course, you'd be familiar with that, David. It's a U.S. government health agency. But they report that the average American spends 93% of their life indoors, and they broke it down to 87% in a dwelling/your workplace and another 6% inside a car. So that means only 7% of our life is outdoors. And I have no reason to think that the numbers would be very different here in Canada. So what are we missing? What are some of the benefits of forest bathing?
Lots of benefits. The medicine of the forests is deep and rich. We're only beginning to scratch the surface there. One of the best benefits of an outdoor mindfulness practice such as this is addressing burnout. That is a global phenomenon because, in fact, the World Health Organization last May classified burnout as a syndrome linked to chronic stress. And walks in nature, such as this, have the ability to, 1, reduce stress, and 2, lower blood pressure, often in as little as 20 minutes, almost by 20%, 17%-ish. Other benefits include better focus, improved mood, increased sense of calm, more altruistic behavior. You're kinder after walking in the forest. Enhanced creativity. Even Matthew P. White, he was at the University of Exeter Medical School in the UK. They did a study this past year that cited you only need 2 hours a week in nature to gain the most benefits. And that doesn't have to be done all at once. You can spread it out. There's reduction of PTSD symptoms, ADHD symptoms. There's boosting of our natural killer cells, which are our immune system. And those cells in particular focus on viruses and early signs of cancer. So absorbing what they call phytoncides from the forest, these are what the trees use to protect themselves from invaders. They also boost our immune system. After 3 hours in the woods, there's studies have shown that levels of those NK cells are boosted by as much as 46%. That's almost 50%. Depending on the individual, they stay at those elevated levels for a week to a month afterwards. So if you just went on a weekly hike, you're doubling your immune system capacity in some cases.
It's just incredible. And for those type A's, and I'm one of them, that's about 17 minutes a day roughly. And I say that knowing that some still would be reluctant. They perceive this perhaps as tree hiking, and it's not for them. Why do you think some people still hesitate to accept the principles and or the benefits of something so simple as this?
I don't know. People are people, right? By their very nature, some are drawn to one thing, some are drawn to the other thing. Hey, I'm not out to convert anyone. I like to draw people's attention to Harvard entomologist, the famous entomologist E.O. Wilson at Harvard, coined a term called biophilia. It basically means humanity's innate love of and connection to the natural world. Our ancestors didn't evolve in cities. For hundreds of thousands of years, they evolved out there, the woods, the forests, the jungles. It's in our DNA. It's why hunters love the stillness of that deer stand or the duck blind as the sun begins to rise. It's why that hike in the woods leaves you feeling so refreshed. It's why we're drawn to water. It's why we're drawn to fire and that awe-inspiring view. Why do you think penthouses or lake homes cost so much? It's not because we decided that. It's because we're hardwired to desire those things. Instead of Ethernet, think Earthnet, right?
Well, some may argue we need both, which is okay too. But try this. Try forest bathing. And if they do try it for the first time, David, what would you tell them?
I would tell them the first thing, and it's a thread running through this entire conversation, is be intentional. We're so busy and we're so rushed and we're going so fast. we ignore 90% of the things that cross our path every day. So if you're going to go out to that city park at lunchtime, do it with intention and put your phone away. In fact, turn your phone off is the number one rule, so that you're not getting buzzed throughout the experience. And you can sit there, you can sit up against a tree and just absorb what's around you. That's really all this is intentionally noticing what's happening around you. You can look up into that tree canopy and study the branches or the leaves as they move in the wind for 20 minutes. It's really simple things like that that just lets you connect at a deeper level. Close your eyes. In fact, we use our eyes way too much, to the detriment of our other senses. It's one of the first invitations we do is with closing our eyes and kind of tapping into those other senses, even to the senses that we rarely think of, like the sense of gravity on our bodies. How does it feel to be, pulled to the earth? The sense of proprioception. When you close your eyes and move your finger around, you know where your finger is, even though you can't see it. That's the sense of our body in space. So becoming more aware of that and aware of the other senses. What can you hear? What can you hear that's the farthest away? What can you hear that's the nearest? How many sounds can you weave in, both human sounds and natural sounds? Smelling the air. Just kind of go through each sense in a slow, deliberate, intentional manner.
I was reading an article where you were describing our lifestyle culture, and I think it connects a bit with what we discussed a little earlier, but I was intrigued by it because you said we are always in a constant state of flight, and you were referring more so to the physiological aspect rather than the psychological aspect. Can you expand on that?
Yes. Constantly connected modern culture is persistently blurring the boundaries between work, family, and leisure. It's creating this slow kind of IV drip of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, into our bodies. This is like being in this incessant low-level state of fight or flight. Our nervous systems, our bodies weren't designed to be in that constant state of stress. They're designed to use that burst of adrenaline and cortisol to escape danger or to kill the saber-toothed tiger. But then after that was over, we retreated into what we call rest and digest mode. And what's happening now with the culture of society is that we're not ever shifting into that rest and digest. We're always in this low level of fight or flight, this low level of stress just seeping. And this interminable stream bathing our systems with stress, it's bad for us. We can't go on like this.
And that's just our everyday stress. It's 10 times that now for millions of people around the world. And unfortunately, it looks like it may become more intense before it even begins to get better. So I hope this may be a helpful solution to nurture well-being for our listeners. And the evidence is compelling. I was going over a study, this one from South Korea, and it looked at 3 groups of people suffering from depression. So they put them through therapy sessions, breaking it into 3 different environments. The first was through a forest, the second was through a hospital, and the third was a control group where they were getting regular outpatient therapy. But after 4 weeks of treatment, the forest group saw a 61% remission rate, much higher than those through the hospital at 21% or the control group, which was just 5%. Really remarkable the difference this makes, and I now know, doing further research, that there are some doctors that are now prescribing a walk in the park. It's an initiative that was started up by a Washington, D.C. pediatrician, and now more than 300 doctors have signed on to this program, and it echoes what you were saying. We need to go back to the basics and connect with nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's more and more physicians who are getting on board with this every day. There's the Park RX America. Also in the UK, I know in Scotland, the health system in Scotland has embraced this fully and is writing park prescriptions. There's also an organization called Walk with a Doc in the States, that doctors just go on a walk around the park and they invite whoever is available to join them. It's the research is proving out more and more that this is valuable. And in most cases, if you don't want to be guided, it's free.
Yeah, it's true. But the reality
Right?
is some people need that little nudge. They need to be steered, Try it. And what's the worst that could happen? And I would imagine you have met many people whose lives are transformed with this type of therapy. Can you share any stories?
One story was pretty profound. I guided a person. I was guiding a group, and it was a group of senior citizens that all had terminal diseases, or other types of malaise. And one of the people that I guided, I only found this out afterwards, had agoraphobia, which is a fear of being out in the open or in places where you can't escape. And this person remarked in a kind of a follow-up survey how they had completely different perspective on being outside or in the forest after this walk. They felt the methods of noticing and intention allowed them to enjoy the beauty around them in a way where they weren't finding themselves focusing on their internal anxieties. And this was transformative for them.
Now, you're not only a certified forest therapy guide, but you're also a licensed landscape architect. And I found that combination very interesting. I'm wondering if those two accolades conflict or complement each other.
Oh, they're absolutely complementary. I've been a landscape architect for almost 20 years. And as a designer, you're trained, that's the whole core of design training, is you're trained to notice things that others may miss. That's how you solve a problem differently and uniquely. You imagine that solution with all your senses. How would it feel to sit in this space? What does it smell like with, the flowers or the trees around you? What are the sensations that the materials give me? So you're thinking through all that with your senses, and this helps propel your design forward and make it better. As a designer, you're also trained to listen. You're trained to listen to critiques and to yourself, and to take what you need at that moment in time to improve your design. So as a guide, this is very comparable, because your noticing is also a critical piece of the equation in guiding and being guided. I like to think that previous training and talent was honed even more finely in the forest, because I started noticing things I had never seen before. The same holds true for taking what you need. If you're able to release those expectations, you open yourself up to hearing what your heart needs to hear, whether that's easy or difficult, and you're able to get that thing that only you can use, that's unique to you and your needs.
Yeah, I get that, but I was thinking with landscape design, you're actually manipulating nature to some extent, rather than letting it flourish on its own.
Sure, and there are many designers that design in that manner. There's also a large percentage of designers that design with nature. Ian McHarg, who is a famous landscape architect, that was the title of his book, was Design with Nature. And we're trained, again, we're trained to observe, it's called the genius loci, or the genius of the place, and see, what are the trees in that space? How does the geology look? What do the hills look like, and the topography? And a good designer will use that to help shape the design, rather than place their design on top of that.
And that is why people pay big bucks for a landscape designer. I would assume you don't look at a single plant or tree the same as an average person. You view it through a variety of lenses.
Yeah, you see it through all those senses. And then, in fact, that's something we do on the walks. We end a walk with a foraged tea. So we are well versed in plants that can make tea, and being able to taste that little bit of nature is really profound for a lot of people. Taking staghorn sumac berries, which is known as kind of nature's lemonade. It's got a lot of vitamin C, a lot of antioxidants, and it has a tangy kind of lemonade-like flavor when you brew the tea. Or, spruce tips, Douglas fir tips, they make this lemony, delicious tea. So there's really some cool things you can do with plants and incorporation.
Disclaimer alert, disclaimer alert. Do not try this alone. Ensure a trained professional assists you when making forced beverages.
Absolutely. That's why I said we are trained in this.
Well, let's just make that clear. Not all sumacs are the same.
No, that is true.
This has been fun and very informative, David. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
My guest has been David Motzenbecker. He's a certified forest therapy guide and runs Mott Studios Forest Bathing Experiences. You can find more information online at www.motts.com. That's mottstudios.com. Now, once again, I wanted to stress that if you do try forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku, it's imperative that you keep 6 feet apart from one another. That's about a car length away, because some have not done that, and as a result, certain conservation authorities in Canada have already closed some of the parks. They simply have no choice, so we all have to be responsible here. Now, switching gears very quickly, I just wanted to update you. I normally release a new episode every other Tuesday, but with the ongoing crisis, I too am prioritizing my family first. I have 2 young kids, as well as an elderly mom, and we're trying to make things as normal as possible here. So I'm going to do my best to get a new episode at least monthly, and I'll do more if I can. But I do appreciate your ongoing support. Hey, we're in this together, and we're going to get through this. By the way, if you're looking for some distractions for the kids to keep them busy with school still out, my latest newsletter that we just published has a list of eco-crafts. I call them boredom busters. Some really neat things that kids can do right in their own backyard. There's also a feature story in there about the spring migration. It is amazing to think that tens of millions of birds are returning home now, and that is a sure sign of new beginnings. When we talk about the signatures of spring, and also in the newsletter how COVID-19 has actually helped create one good thing. You can subscribe at bigbluemarble.earth, and if you do that, I'll send it out to you right away if you're interested. For show updates and so much more, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Anwar Knight, and subscribe to the podcast. That's all for now. Stay safe, do your part, and let's be kind to one another. I'm Anwar Knight, wishing you a great day on the Big Blue Marble.
That was another great show, Daddy.